Tom Quee and Sam Wiles present Down in the Hole, a Tom Waits podcast which explores and critiques, episode by episode, every album of the American artist. To find out more information about the show and the man himself, visit tomwaitspodcast.wordpress.com. Hello, and welcome back. This is the second episode of Down in the Hole, which is a Tom Waits podcast. I'm Tom Quee, and with me as ever I have...
Sam Wiles, hello again. How you doing, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man.
I'm glad. We're on the second episode, you know.
Second episode, listen to a lot of Tom Waits.
But there's no such thing as too much Tom Waits.
There isn't.
Yeah, you can just, he's there for any mood.
It is ridiculous, really, isn't it? It's like if you listen to a lot of Bruce Springsteen or Guns N' Roses or, you know, name pretty much any other band, like, you are going to get tired, not only just because it's them, but just because the music is a little mono, you know what I mean? It's a little predictable, but Tom really is, he has, you know, so many pockets. You know, you could live in his beatnik I'm sure many people do. I'm sure many people just like beatnik Waits and don't like where he goes later. Or likewise, I'm sure many people love the Mule Variations Waits, but despise what we're going to look at today, the Heart of Saturday Night Waits.
Yeah, it's funny when you go on sites like Rate My Music and stuff like that, and Metacritic. All the Tom Waits albums are very consistently rated. There's no like spike or drop really.
Okay.
So like there are people who just like all of them. Like I remember our old English teacher, her favourite album was the
Heart Attack and Vine.
Heart Attack and Vine, yeah.
Which is an odd choice. God. Like it's just it's not bad. But it ain't like a spike.
No, but it's not even like an introductory album or one that you'd find anywhere. Like, it wasn't big, and it didn't have any big songs on it, so I don't know how she ever found that.
I guess Jersey Girl, which closes it, yeah.
Yeah.
But the production on that Jersey Girl, which we'll get to in, I guess that'll be episode 6 or 7, Heart Attack and Vine.
Yes.
I think it's somewhere around that sort of middling point when he kind of lost his way a little bit. But anyway, yeah, today we are speaking about Tom's second album.
Album syndrome. Oof.
Second album syndrome. As he says, you know, I read a good interview with him this morning actually, and he was talking about how the second album's difficult purely through the merit of the unique thing is having a first one.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? And once you've got a first one, there are tens of thousands of other songwriters and bands out there that have a first album. So, you know, he just kind of hypothesized himself, like maybe he would just shave his head to differentiate himself, you know.
Wow.
But
what's like be a different person for each album? Because
I guess so.
He kind of does that with each song anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like it says here in my notes that he apparently thought the album was going to be pretty much a blockbuster.
Oh right.
But he didn't really do that well, as none of his albums sell, really.
No.
When he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he said, I'm difficult to work with and I don't have any hits. And I think that just pretty much sums up the whole podcast, really.
Yeah, definitely. He's in this album. It's very surprising to have gone so quickly from Closing Time. Like, he definitely could have made a Closing Time too. Like you know what I mean, on that same spirit. And I think some of these songs, you know, inhabit that Closing Time aura. But it's quite commendable that Tom is breaking new ground.
I don't think there are many second albums out there that you couldn't argue contained hangovers from the first sessions, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just because you've got to fill up the second album while you're still relatively popular, haven't you?
And totally. I mean, off the top of my head, Van Halen 2. I mean, I don't know if any of our fans have listened to Van Halen 2. If you do want to get in touch with the podcast, by the way, tomwaitspodcast@gmail.com. That's our email that me and Sam will be checking. We also run a blog as well where we host the episodes and also have additional information. That's downinthehole.wordpress.com. But yeah, just quickly, because I mean, we mentioned Van Halen before, so I guess why not mention them again, even though we're not really big Van Halen fans. But like,
I think I've heard about 4 songs, but I love them all.
Actually, to be fair, no, I do quite like sort of David Lee Roth Van Halen, and like there's one Sammy Hagar album that's quite good, but Van Halen 1's great, you know, it's fantastic. Van Halen 2 is Van Halen 1, but just not quite as good. Like the songs just are nowhere near as memorable, whereas with Heart of Saturday Night, you know, you have an adoption of kind of, I guess it feels natural, a progression of where Tom has gone musically and lyrically. You know, these inspirations that he's calling upon were always there. You know, he's always been into these writers and the idea of the Heart of Saturday Night and that kind of that beatnik adventurism. Yeah. But it's nice that I guess Tom feels more comfortable on this album. You know,
He does feel more Tom.
yeah.
Was this a late album for you?
This was fairly late. I remember when it's similar to you. I kind of, because we spoke about this before. I didn't quite get onto my own Tom Waits introduction, so I guess quickly just I was introduced to by a friend of ours who we might have on the podcast. Just kind of in passing, really. He kind of mentioned this artist, and I was kind of looking for new people to get into. And I was just on one of those, like, I mean, when you're a kid, when you're like 16, 17, and you discover torrenting, you will download everything. Like, you know what I mean? The joy of a whole discography in one click. I mean, it's intoxicating. So downloaded Tom Waits' discography, and kind of, it was, it's a huge behemoth of so many albums with so many interesting titles, and you kind of shuffle through and you're like, what the, 5 songs will give you like the weirdest progression. So I was on a Rain Dogs kind of Mule Variations kind of thing. Just not really sure why, just Rain Dogs. I'd search best Tom Waits album sort of, on Google, and
that
Rain
will
Dogs
always come up as number one.
Yeah. Rain Dogs and Mule Variations pretty much are the top 2. So I was enjoying them.
We are going to try and not spoil those 2 albums as much as possible, but we probably are going to mention them every episode just because it's hard not to put your fandom in context of the 2 best albums.
It is, yeah. So they were interesting to me, but I found them quite difficult. So I remember liking House Where Nobody Lives and Picture in a Frame, and I remember really liking Singapore, but kind of just struggling to kind of put them into context. And then I by chance stumbled upon VH1 Storytellers, which has a much more stripped back approach to all those songs, so they're immediately more accessible. And I remember I distinctly remember revising for, oh man, it must have been like AS level history, revising for Russian history and listening over and over again to the VH1 edition of House Where Nobody Lives.
Yes.
It's an absolutely fantastic rendition with a really nice guitar. I think it's Smokey or Mel, I believe his name, I might be misquoting him. Beautiful lyrical guitar that really brings out the song. So from there I was given confidence, and I was like, okay, I'll just explore this whole thing. And I remember listening to Heart of Saturday Night quite quickly after and really warming to it, because it is quite immediately enjoyable. It lacks the layering, perhaps,
and the experimentation.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, you just, it's not too hard to get to grips with from quite early on. You can understand, even the album cover kind of does a really good, it's kind of play on in the small hours and the wee hours.
It's the old Frank Sinatra album.
Yeah, and just kind of, it presents a more accurate Tom. Whereas in A Closing Time, Tom, the cover again is great. Him at the piano with the ashtray and stuff. It's very evocative. But
I mean, for a man as sponge-like as Tom, it's very appropriate for him to almost have a pastiche album cover that does homage where he's come from. Yeah, because you never get the sense that Tom's not a bolt out of a blue sky. He's definitely the amalgamation of where he's come from.
Certainly, yeah.
Shall we get on to the album?
Yeah, I just thought before we just get into the actual songs themselves, it might help just do a little bit of context. I mean, I think with this podcast, we've got to get across that this isn't like a sort of biography of Tom through his songs. Like, I mean, we will obviously talk about his life and because it's a great interest, but
and he just throws himself into his songs whether he knows he does or not.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this is a podcast about songwriting and music, but I think it helps if we just do a little bit of critique. So just before, this is all from Barney Hoskins again. Really incredible book. We're gonna, big it up every time because it's a brilliant read. Low Side of the Road.
It's a tome, isn't it? Like,
it's just really well written as well. It's just like I've read quite a few musical biographies of people that are even easier to write about because they're just more accessible, that don't have this compelling narrative thread and that aren't just like really well put together. So yeah, I think what was interesting was from historical context, like, a lot of the times you read in the book, oh, Tom went on a gig with this person, or Tom supported this person, and just through the decades of time, you don't know who they are. Obviously they still record, maybe they're still alive, maybe not, maybe they're big in certain circles. But it was very interesting that after Closing Time, his manager sends him out with Frank Zappa.
Oh, they're both on Geffen Records, though, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. But I mean, just from a kind of, that is a mouth-watering double header, isn't it? Really.
Well, it's weird that Tom didn't immediately go into Swordfish trombones after hanging out with Frank Zappa just once, really, isn't it? But I think he had to use a lot of the instruments that Zappa used on stage as well.
It was because Zappa has such a theatrical kind of explosive kind of approach to the stage. Lots of musicians, lots of noodly guitar, lots of satire. and it was just Tom and Bob Webb, I believe, who was his bass player at the time in the early 70s. So it was a very stripped back thing. And if you think about that in the context of the main act is this kind of maniacal guitar player, who's really kind of like meta, and then you have Tom, this kind of beatnik throwback to an era that Zappa fans probably wouldn't even, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm kind of hypothesizing here, but kind of even, today with 50 years hindsight, the beatnik thing is a bit more kind of esteemed and a bit more kind of revered, and
Kerouac like things like Howl and
it's in the popular culture, like it definitely is. People are aware of it in whatever way they are. Maybe through Tom as well. He himself has popularized that, but back then it must have seen as this kind of like archaic throwback. You have Zappa.
I mean, it's like 20 years ahead, so it'd be like us looking back on just things like early Manchester club culture, like, oh, that was a thing then, but it's not now.
Yeah. And so like you say, Tom, they wouldn't change the stage, so Zappa would have a huge stage set up, and Tom would have to get onto stage, climb into the set, as it were, because there were so many kind of instruments around. He would play on an electric piano as well, which he wasn't used to, which is something that is explored briefly on this album, interestingly. But I mean, if it is the closing time, this is a guy who plays at a grand piano, who plays in the kind of solemn light and kind of like serenades the crowd. But
I think Herb, his manager, chucking him on tour with Zappa though is a bit of sort of throwing him in the deep end kind of move, really, isn't it? Just to see if he can handle the road. I'm not saying chucking him on the road with Frank made him a worse alcoholic, but definitely the themes of alcohol do get explored a lot quicker as these albums progress.
Yeah, and I think just Tom wouldn't have enjoyed the album. Wouldn't have enjoyed the tour. Not only because he probably wasn't getting, it just probably wasn't comfortable for him musically, and it probably wasn't something he was used to. But the crowd reaction was bad, pretty much. I mean, like, according to the book, aside from a few shows in the Midwest in which he was well received, there was a moment at Toronto's Massey Hall where the set degenerated into expletives. Tom just slinging expletives at the crowd, and apparently an irate fan was so annoyed, was so unhappy that they set off a firecracker from the balcony, which you can imagine that kind of happening in big time, but not in closing time era. Poor Tom trying to play Rosie and Martha, or maybe doing a little folky cover, and he don't give a shit, man. And also supposedly another unnamed gig, fans threw enough salad on stage for they threw enough fruit on stage for Waits to have made several salads.
Well, several, yeah.
Several's, several's a lot. Road stuff.
Could feed Frank.
It could do good, yeah. So basically, Geffen, David Geffen, felt that though Closing Time was, well received, it didn't bring out the kind of the jazz of Tom, which is true, which is definitely true. Like, Tom would no doubt have employed that in a live setting. And
I'm just glad that me and David Geffen clearly have similar tastes, really.
Yeah, I'm glad about that too. But anyway, back to this. So jazz. Basically, he got Bones Howe involved, who is the main producer, the kind of the forefront of the thought process in the heart of Saturday Night. This is someone who has an incredibly esteemed career now, but even back then, he had produced some people.
He worked for Kerouac, didn't he?
He had been involved with Kerouac, yeah. He had been involved with Fifth Dimension, the Elvis Comeback Special, Ornette Coleman, Frank Sinatra's Swing Along With Me. This was a guy who really had a vision. Maybe Jerry Yester. There isn't really a producer's hand on Closing Time, really. Like, it does just feel like a demo,
a supervisor's hand more than anything. Just this is what you want. Whereas this guy, I mean, the moment Tom must have found out that he worked with Kerouac and Sinatra, he must have just been right on it. They must have just clicked, because something does click on this album that doesn't on Closing Time.
Yes. And
I think, like, a lot of people, like, a big general consensus about The Heart of Saturday Night is that while maybe the best songs aren't as good as the best songs maybe on Closing Time, there's a general sound that is just totally perfect. Like, a lot of people say it's quite a concept album, with the themes of nighttime and drunkenness and being lonely, and the town, like the eponymous town, like it's this alive creature, is sold a lot better than the sort of scattershot topics of Closing Time.
Yeah. It's definitely carved more. It definitely feels formed more, and I think musically as well, it's a lot more interesting. There's a lot more talented playing on here, I think, and most explicitly in Mike Melvoin, who joined, who was a pianist and a composer who would work on Pet Sounds and other things like that. You know, and Tom himself, like, I love Tom Waits' piano playing. I think especially on VH1 Storytellers, as I said before, he has this beautiful, like, it's almost like his poetry, you know, it's just scattershot. There's little melodies here and there, will just kind of clink along when he's singing, you know. Mike Melvoin is a much more player's player, you know, he's very technically gifted. He can merge pop with the funk and jazz of Heart of Saturday Night, and it makes for a much more entrancing listen. Like, when the song, like, you know, on Closing Time, when the songs don't work, as you said in Rosie, like, Rosie is a great song. I really enjoyed that song, but it has a really kind of slack middle eight where Tom didn't have any ideas, so there aren't really ideas. Whereas I think Heart of Saturday Night has a much more ornate, bespoke quality to it. It has a lot of talent behind Tom. You know?
Well, have you heard about some of the musicians that played on this album? One of them is actually from Gotham. His name's Jim Gordon.
Oh, right.
And he was the drummer, and he'd worked on one of my favourite albums, which is George Harrison's debut, All Things Must Pass.
Yep.
And then quite famously, he was a bit of a character, shall we say. And after he'd made the album with Tom, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and murdered his own mother.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this album's got a lot of energy behind it, something probably pumped up beneath the surface. And the drums are pretty damn good on this album, actually. They seem quite background in the original one, as most of the non-Tom instruments do, actually.
Yeah.
Even the orchestral backups seem very just added on, just because that's what you do on an album. But yeah, I think that's about it, really.
Yeah. I think with that we should.
Actually, one thing before we start. I hope you don't know about this, because I've been trying to find something just to catch you off guard with.
Well, I'm not. You know, we're not kind of like scholars, but yeah. Sorry, go on.
Well, that's what I wrote on my CV. But did you know that there was a non-album single for this album?
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Blue Skies.
Yes, I saw in the Hoskins book, isn't there? There's a picture of it, but I've never heard it.
It's in the Early Years Volume 2.
Okay.
Which is probably something we'll just, in one of our compilation episodes.
Yeah,
definitely. We'll get to it. But it's very odd, as it's a country song, and there is no country on this album.
No, there is not.
And it's almost like it's a send-off from one time of Waits to another. You know, very much in that Strawberry Fields sense, where you get like either a sense of the next album or the album previous, and it's meant to be a bridge, and it is very, like, it's very solemn, just farewell, really, and that could literally be a farewell to his whole countryside, because he used to write loads of them, and now that he's just gone straight onto this full-on jazz album, pizzazz, bing bow, and let's just dive right in, man. I love this album. I love this.
Let's dive right in.
It is the first likable Tom Waits album, I feel.
I don't think Closing Time's unlikable. I think Closing Time's quite engaging. I think people would like Closing Time if they just heard it apropos. It was put on.
I feel like I'm skipping more songs on Closing Time than I am on this one.
I think this is more consistent. Yeah. So we'll start with the first song then. New Coat of Paint, Sam. How do you think about New Coat of Paint?
Exactly the same way I feel about Old 55. Really, he's kicking it off with a bang. It's a very energetic sort of bluesy jam, and it gets dirtier as it progresses, and it just kicks off the album perfectly. Really, it catches that sort of initial adventure of the gin-soaked roam through town. You know what I mean?
It's that nice. There's just a little bit of drumming, and then it comes in, doesn't it? It feels like you're on the climax of something as you're entering the album. Like it has Old 55 has maybe a bit more of a subdued intro, but this one has that really kind of earthy Dr. John style kind of piano, and Tom has a much blacker singing style on this, doesn't he? It's a much sort of throatier, kind of much more soulful approach in this. It's definitely, his voice hasn't became what is Tom, and it arguably inhabits that more on Small Change is when we start to see that kind of come out. I mean, it's still kind of Closing Time Tom, but yeah, this is a... Well,
like songs like Virginia Avenue and Fumbling with the Blues, like all of that is just the progression to his sort of grizzled voice, and he based it off one of his uncles, didn't he? In the end.
Yeah, I heard so, but I heard that was kind of one of those apocryphal stories where it was his uncle who had been in surgery, and they'd sewed him up but left the scissors inside his body, and he coughed them out. and that's
Wow.
what led to the kind of laceration that Tom employs. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say this is a great Tom Waits song, though. I'm not even going to say it's one of the best songs on the album. It works as an intro, and it's exciting. But I think the best part of this album, unfortunately, is not the best part of this song. Sorry, Tom, of this song is not Tom Waits. It's Mike. I think the closing piano is great. It's real stinging solo. Like it just the band go full frontal. Like because he goes. What is it? Fishing for a good time starts with throwing in your line, which is whatever. It's not a bad lyric, but and then just the piano overrides the mix. It's great.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the bloodshot moon line. I did think it was a little tacky. The lyrics overall, yeah, you're right. They're not the best, but again, it's that attention grabbing sort of. Yep, here's the album. We're off on Saturday night. Let's all just get a bit excited, and I think it just captures that quite well.
And it's interesting, like just from a lyrical standpoint, like the idea of a metaphor of a new coat of paint. Like if you're painting a new coat on something, you're admitting that the old one doesn't necessarily need complete rebuilding. It just needs updating, and that's definitely what Tom is doing musically here. Like he's employing these old jazz and beatnik standards, and he's just putting his own coat of paint on that, on what that is, on the old town, as it were, as he says in the song.
Or even just him as himself. He's got different artists this time. He's got a different studio, different producer. So it's still him, but he's painted blue this time or something.
Yeah, definitely. Bloodshot Moon, Burgundy Sky is not. I mean, I think he's improving as a lyricist in this album, definitely. And it's interesting that prior to the recording, he had been involved in like story workshops at like San Diego State Fair and stuff.
Okay.
Which is it's one of those things where it's like, oh, why didn't cameras exist? You know what I mean? Like I would have loved. Like this was one of those things where maybe it's been recorded, but him just kind of engaging in competitive storytelling would have been incredible, and he performed poetry and stuff, and a lot of open mics. So yeah, I think New Coat of Paint is fun. I mean, you really enjoy this one, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate to bring up the me cycling again, but I was out again this morning, and it's just a fun song to feel the breeze. Really, it's just It captures something that I personally feel I've experienced, and I think that's something Tom is very good at, capturing bits from your own life that you can recognise, like, oh yeah, I have been kind of on this journey, like, it's Saturday night, you've just, it's after closing time, ironically, and you're just looking forward to it, and it does make you anticipate the rest of the album, i.e. the rest of the night, a lot more, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting movement, and it does, in retrospect, after experiencing the album, it captures that sense of just before you're going out. It's a really enjoyable piece of music. Whereas I wouldn't say it was great, but it's fun.
If you have to compare it to Old 55, though, it's not the same type of album opener, though, is it really?
No, entirely different. No, but it's functional, and it brings us onto, as that ends, we have like a small kind of little piano move, and we go into San Diego Serenade.
Well, the first thing that is apparent in this song is that he pronounces melody in it again, and I was just wondering if you preferred it this time.
I didn't mind it. I think because my relationship with San Diego Serenade is a little weird. Like, I remember really liking this song when I was younger.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, really enjoying it. I kind of like the melody, ironically. But the problem is that it has one idea.
Well,
it literally has the rhetorical paradox that it explores throughout, and every line begins with I, and then we kind of have the same kind of song going over and over again, and
Well, it's very restrictive for a Tom Waits song, and it's odd to see him just sort of confine himself in this one sort of mode of singing for one song. It's just kind of jarring. Like, I know he's trying to channel his best Ray Charles here, but all that comes off is that horrible Traveller song that came out a couple of years ago, Let Her Go.
I'm afraid I don't.
It was a very big song for a while. You only need the light when it's burning low. Like, it was terrible. It was massive. It was everywhere, and it's literally this song just saying something you don't have and wishing you have it. It's like, it's easy. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry.
Ironic as well by Alanis Morissette is another one of those that kind of is similar to this.
That song's not very ironic though, famously, is it?
No, and like that's one of but yeah, we don't need to plough that. But yeah, it's I think musically, again, my problem with Tom in these early albums has been the string arrangements, but I think the strings here are actually really nice because it's pop songwriting 101, because lyrically and musically nothing's changing, because he's, you know, in verse 1 he's saying, you know, I never saw my hometown until I stayed away too long, and then in verse 4 he's saying, I never saw the sunshine till you turned out your love. You know what I mean? He's just exploring the things saying. So they have to do something new to the backing. So in the third verse we have the kind of nice kind of like the thrum of strings, which is like oddly, you know, it's oddly satisfying, but there's just not enough here for it to go into anywhere that's nearly memorable. Like for me, revisiting this for the pod, I found it a little bit more annoying almost. Like
he seems like he's being haunted with the ghost of sentimentality in this phase, and it's like, I get where he was going. I wish he'd have gotten there, if you know what I mean. Like when it says, I never heard the melody till I needed the song, ironically the album doesn't need the song. You could have literally just skipped straight into, well, unless you've got anything further to say, we've got the third song on the album.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, you don't know what you got till it's gone, is what Tom's trying to say. And I think some lines...
He could have said that in 10 seconds.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell did, like, you know, but I think some lines are enjoyable in the certain sense of like the nostalgia that Tom Waits, you know, just is like his music exudes that, you know, like I never saw hometown till I stayed away too long. I never, like some of the lines though I have a little bit of a kind of with like I never saw the moonlight until it shone off your breast. Like that one to me is a little trite. It's a little sixth form. And also I never saw your tears until they rolled down your face. Well, duh. Yeah. Like I don't, you know what I mean? I kind of know that it's a trope that he's mining, and they're not all going to be like really poignant lines of I never X'd because I Y'd, but tears to the roll down the faces.
Maybe he started writing a poignant song and ran out halfway through. Who knows?
Potentially. Well, I mean, we discussed it in the last episode. This was a song that was written before Closing Time was recorded.
And it does feel that.
Yeah, it does have a juvenilia kind of quality to it in a certain sense. But yeah, let's move on.
We may put this up on the blog, but there's a great little interview where he's actually doing an interview for Closing Time, and he talks about San Diego Serenade. Yeah, fantastic little collection called Tom Waits The Document, and we'll provide links to that, obviously.
Totally.
Up next, we've got a song that is only semi-sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, it harkens back to the first album again, with the band sort of counting in, and it's got that sort of raunchy horn, smooth bass, but it doesn't really. It's just not that inventive, really. I'm not a big fan of this song. I'm just going to get that out of the way. It's Tom Waits song number 148-B that has a far superior live version, but. Besides demonstrating the sort of genuine harmony between Tom and his piano, I don't think this song has got a very cemented place in Tom Waits' history at all, really. It
doesn't, and I guess part of it should be we should stop maybe just striving for songs to be like Tom Waits classics, because he has so many songs. But
no, but it's hard to not hold him up to his own personal standard.
It is. I would actually say this is my favourite song on the album so far. I actually really like this song quite a lot. I think it's definitely it's our first taste of a new Waits. Like I would argue that New Coat of Paint kind of has that similar kind of strum to Ice Cream Man. Like it's an environment that Tom's operated in before. San Diego Serenade, we said before, has a kind of like lolloping quality that's found on Grapefruit Moon and Midnight Lullaby. Semi-Sweet. I love the intro. You know, I think it's absolutely lovely. You can feel the kind of neon flickering and that really light piano, and it goes na 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 na. It has like a real nice tightness to it, like which kind of makes me think of like the compositional quality behind Tom in the producing room. Like it has a nice, believable kind of swagger to it. You know.
Well, this whole album makes me wonder why Tom's never scored a film like this. With a bit more just in your face jazz, because obviously in his later career he just goes to more of those string swells. One thing that is quite nice about this song that I would say is his voice is very different than we ever really hear again. It's very vulnerable. It cracks and it warbles, and it's just nice to hear his sort of stream of consciousness, knick-knack of ideas coming out in this much less sort of bombastic in your like I'm Tom Waits, I'm awesome kind of place.
Yeah, and it's again like it's our first story in the album really, and it does have quite a nice story. I mean, it kind of tells a story of sort of a woman who's in a relationship with a trucker, and that trucker is dedicated to the road, quite literally in this case, you know, because he has to make a living off the road. But I assume that it kind of has higher meaning in the sense of Tom Waits himself. I mean, this is something that he explores a bit more explicitly on Shiver Me Timbers, but the idea of always wanting to leave, always wanting to explore. And
Waits was a man of wanderlust. Like he obviously moved from house to house a lot, but he did just like to be somewhere new, and I think going on tour with Zappa was kind of a dream, really, like an opportunity that he would take up just so he could explore. Just one quick aside, because these influences are going to be coming up soon. While he was out on tour, he and what was his bassist's name again? Bob something.
Bob Webb.
They actually visited the grave of Kerouac.
Oh, okay.
So that obviously puts a massive sort of spin on what this album's trying to achieve.
Well, I mean, that's just one event. You can't really pin it on the whole album's like goals, but
Bob, I believe, at one point said they were kind of stuck with the concept of being at the centre of a Saturday night in America, really, and they got a lot of inspirations from a book called The Visions of Cody, which I've never read.
Yes,
have you
I haven't. No, I know it's Kerouac. Yeah,
and I think a lot of the mythologicalization, if that's a word, I'm very sorry if it's not.
Mythologizing. Okay, doesn't matter.
Yeah, all the
TomWaitsPodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. All this sort of creating legends around one's own life and sort of creating this sense of real awe and gravitas to something quite normal is something that appears in all of these songs, really. Like there's this definite weight given to just something as simple as a guy going out on Saturday, a guy's got to go out to work, a guy's got to leave.
That's true. And I think In Semi-Sweet is the perfect example, really. There's some nice writing here as well that kind of Tom will explore throughout. He talks about this is from the trucker. The woman recalling what the trucker said. He tells you that you're on his mind. You're the only one he's ever going to find that's kind of special and understands his complicated soul. But there's only a place a man can breathe and collect his thoughts is midnight and flying away on the road. And like you say before, his voice is quite vulnerable as well, and he's like, his trousers are hanging on the chair. Yeah, that's quite nice. And he's like, he's a truck driving man. Like, there's steel. Like, this is a good song, man.
The way his voice does change mid songs is always satisfying. It's always satisfying. Just hear him just break a little and just like add a bit of swagger, shall we say?
So I think Semi-Sweet's very sweet, actually. But it's interesting you would feel otherwise.
It's perfectly fine in the background, but I'd rather skip to the middle part of the album, which I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for.
Well, we'll go into the fourth, which is kind of I said before, companion piece to Semi-Sweet, Shiver My Timbers, which it's kind of drawing upon something that Tom Waits will draw upon a lot, and I don't think he's really made reference to yet, nautical themes. The themes of the ocean, explicitly the themes of voyaging and escaping. This is kind of a Semi-Sweet companion piece. He references people like Martin Eden, Captain Ahab, these classic figures. He does say, "Old Captain Ahab ain't got nothing on me," which it kind of feels like something he would do an aside for, like in Nighthawks when he says like. Someone Fishwick ain't got nothing on me in reference to the weather, and that gets a laugh. It doesn't really feel like something he should couch within this song.
Obviously there's the connotations of Ahab chasing something that he'll never be able to get as well.
Of course.
I mean, is that his music he's talking about, or just the idea of Saturday night? Who knows?
There's similar to like when you'll be on the dockside and you'll hear the horn going out. There is a really nice, mournful horn in this song as well that kind of like beats in and out. But I think, like, in spite of the raw emotion and in spite of the nice world that he's painting here, he talks about the fog lifting and the sand shifting and all of that sort of thing, and like the idea of like the blue water's my daughter. I'm gonna skip like a stone. I don't like water and daughter. I like skip like a stone. That's quite nice as well. it lacks a little bit of melodic rigor for me. It lacks a bit of discipline in what the song is. And it's very similar to Semi-Sweet in the sense that it's kind of this long expanse on themes of escape without a real musical strength beneath it.
I mean, like, I do like this song. I love the whole the clouds like headlines in a new front page sky. I think that's a fantastic line.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
And it also works on another level as quite a nice metaphor for death, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing with Shiver Me Timbers is it's a very fine song, but ultimately, like with many of these early Waits things, and I know I sound horribly unfair, like you say, we should be looking at it as the album as it is, but in the wider context, they are themes that get resolved better in other songs. I think this Shore Leave is a much better nautical song for Waits, really. I know they're two different beasts. I know they've got two different messages. This one's a rather more somber, sorrowful, like I'm really sad to go. But I just think the ocean as a more of a menacing prospect is just something he's better at. The ocean doesn't want me today.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
As well, just a very haunting song. Whereas this is very much a song from the land still.
And even sometimes it's not even that he's speaking explicitly about the water. It's that he's implying those kind of sailor song tropes. Like I absolutely love. I can't remember what Orphans is off. Probably off Ballers. Two Sisters. I don't know if you remember that one.
Which is that off Bastards? It's quite an odd song.
It is. Bastards is some of Tom Waits' best work, definitely. But yeah, it's basically him and just like this accordion, and it's a real whiny melody. Oh, it's incredible, and the story he tells is heartbreaking, and it just always reminds me of the sea. That song, even though it's not explicitly about the sea, it's just. And maybe in Georgia Lee as well. He says like she was only 15 years old and she'd never seen the ocean. She got in a car of a vagabond.
Obviously, wherever he's lived, he has been by the ocean. So he's met these characters. He was working up late at night from 14, apparently. I know Barney Hoskins debates that at that age, at which he first joined Napoleon's Pizzeria. But he said like he was meeting old dock workers and sailors every night, and he has been prematurely aged, really. Like he's 24 at this point now.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, for a young 24 man to be singing a song like this, no matter what we personally think of the song, the composition, all the lyricism, the fact that he's writing this at this time is still amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I think in terms of like the movement of who he is, Diamonds on My Windshield, which has brackets, which we've spoken about before, Looking For some reason, just Diamond on My Windshield, Looking For, is an absolute shot in the arm, isn't it, really, in this album? Like, I mean, New Coat of Paint was quite a beat, but San Diego, Semi-Sweet, Shiver My Timbers, like, are all quite kind of, they have a languor about them, but this one, just, that bass just comes in, it's popping in, it's all over the fretboard, the little cymbal crashes, the little, it's, yeah.
It's so good. Like, this bass line is so fantastic that I believe it's been sampled twice on the Diggable Planet's rebirth of the Slick and De La Soul's Oodle of O's, which actually appeared on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. And I was like, that's where I know that from. It's so enrapturing. And I believe the bass line was pretty much done on the fly in one take.
Wow.
And he heard Tom, click in and performing it once, and after that he just added this insane backbeat, and you almost have to try and fight between the two, because you want to really focus on this gorgeous bass line and this sublime spoken word lyricism that they are almost in competition. The bit when he says the 8s go east and the 5 go north, the merging exits back and forth, that bit, it perfectly melds with the bass line to just create this song that he really hasn't done up until this point, and this is probably the most Waitsian song he's released at this point.
It's definitely the song you would expect the cover of the album to depict. I mean, it kind of screams that. Yeah, I mean, it's delightful. We never heard him do anything like this. I mean, maybe live, but this is the first time he's ever gone into this like open poetry arena, and he kills it, really. I mean, it's a little derivative in like it's very enjoyable, but it's very skippity bap, and it's him sort of talking about the sort of Saturday night above a bass. Like there's no real new ground here, but it is really enjoyable. There's some really, really good lines. Cole colder than a well digger's ass.
Everyone likes that one.
Everyone likes that line.
Yeah, it's all over the YouTube page. It's all over. It's just people writing colder than a well digger's ass. Colder than a well digger's ass.
And it's just, you know, he has this incredible way to just kind of build this world, and I guess that's why Hard As Saturday Night really succeeds in building a sense of place, because so many of the songs are describing this place, but they're describing effectively the same place, you know, describing the same mood, the kind of, you know, this kind of busy kind of boardwalk where all these sort of characters inhabit. And I always liked the neon billing and the theatres brimming to the theatres filling to the brim. It's just a nice little kind of like 1-2 line and stuff like that, and you know, out of state plates running a little late is nice as well. The groove, you know.
Yeah, like we've said before, this was actually written much earlier than even closing time, because the Venice sort of beat spoken word poetry scene was very big at the time, but didn't have any sort of pop culture grounding. And I believe this actually featured as a spoken word piece in a pamphlet with the cover, for whose cover was designed by Charles Bukowski. So again, he's got all these little tenuous links to all these inspirations that are crafting him into the man that we know today.
And as we fade out, basically,
whispers home at last.
Yeah, and then he says it again. It says the diamonds in the windshield thing. Finally, he does the kind of the final sort of chorus. It always makes me sing. And then as it fades out, I don't know if you heard, but it goes like, "Hey, look here, Jack." Okay, like, but you can barely hear it. It's him
really?
Just kind of like, yeah, it's him sort of speaking off the rhythm and just kind of talking, I guess, to his bass player. Or maybe it's recorded before.
Yeah, it was Jim Hugard was his name. Sorry, the guy.
Yeah, wasn't there? I mean,
it's so spontaneous. It really transcends the whole studio recording sound.
I haven't really read that section of the book recently, but I believe, wasn't there a moment when it was like he said that he should have been paid for that song or something, or he said that him and Waits wrote a lot of songs together and he just kind of did the bass, but he never got credit?
I think he was annoyed that he never got credit on the album. I believe I had to find out Jim Hugard purely through Barney Hoskins. I don't think it's on the actual album itself.
Oh, okay.
I think he may have just been a session bassist for that one song, because he's just the upright bass player. Obviously, he's not the guy who was following him live. That was a different guy. I mean, you're a big spoken word man. What do you think of this piece as just a spoken word performance? Say, if it had no bass behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very of that kind of beat ilk. Definitely, you know, it's kind of the panoply of images that he presents. There's no real kind of critique or sort of social dimension to it. It's more just him building his visual world. I think rhythmically, it's very tight. It's very sound. You know, it's a very interesting piece. I wouldn't say it's one of my like all-time favourites of Waits' kind of spoken word ones. I think he kind of ploughs this furrow more, you know, in more fecund conditions later on, but it's definitely a good song, and you know, as it ends, and I think it's a good intro to Waits as well, isn't it? Just this song.
I think this would have been a great intro to the album. I'm just glad that he's working on his melody and his songwriting as sort of just writing a catchy song rather than getting too political too early. Like, if he'd have done Sins from My Father now, I don't think it would have had the same sort of musical resonance, really. And you do appreciate that he is finding his craft, and I just want to let him carry on with it, really.
Definitely. So as that song ends, and we hear that with the Hey Jack, a car pulls up. You hear the car sort of come on to the evocative highway, as it were.
And this weird soundscape stuff is already very experimental for him at this stage, anyway. I mean, obviously he slept through the '60s, so he hasn't heard like backwards guitar and stuff like that. But just, I was quite taken aback by this when I first heard it. I was like, oh, okay, wow, we really are out on Saturday night now. We really are with him.
And kind of, as it were, as it pulls us into the next song, The Heart of Saturday Night, you know, it's literally the opening line is, "You gassed her up behind the wheel," which is quite nice. He's talking about his car, you know, her.
A different car now. He's in his Oldsmobile,
yeah,
which I believe is a diesel car.
You've gassed her up behind the wheel with your arm around your sweet one. You know, I really like this song. I really like the song Heart of Saturday, which, interestingly, by the way, I mean, this potentially was a choice. We talked about Closing Time earlier and the idea of the order of the songs, but this song is at the heart of the album as well.
Yes.
Like, on either side of this song there are 5 songs. This is the 6th song in an 11-song album. So it maybe makes sense in a sense that it is the concentric middle, It's maybe compositionally the most basic. Obviously, Diamonds and Windshield's a little different because that's kind of a spoken word piece.
But it is just verse, chorus, verse, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's really nice. It's got the nice acoustic guitar here. It's got a real kind of swarmy, kind of loose, fretless bass. The world Tom is painting. Tom isn't painting really like the heart of Saturday Night being something that's like debauched or in pursuit of kind of like narcotics or some sort of heightened experience. It's more just kind of enjoying the world in front of you.
It's maybe it's just the innocence of the start of the night. Like, you never go out seeking trouble, so it is just that sort of that lovely optimism, really, isn't it?
Totally.
Like the way he builds the song though with that diegetic sound of the traffic and the nightlife. You are right. It does build that world to allow this song to be the real poster boy of the album. Like, I love just all those little images that you can hear in your head as the song's playing, like the neon buzzing, the cracking pool balls. It's all.
I always liked telephones ringing. It's your second cousin.
Yes, which always confused me because I'm still not quite sure what a second cousin is, or if I have one.
Second cousin, isn't it kind of like someone related to your cousin that isn't blood or something?
Oh,
like that. It's quite. But yeah,
family's not big enough.
It's the world he builds here is a lovely one, really. It's maybe a little idealistic, and I think the things that he prizes in this world are things that I myself doesn't really appeal to me, like the pool balls and the barmaid and stuff. It's just a bit of a sort of gone era, but the song itself is lovely, and it's a callback to Closing Time, and it's kind of his singer-songwriter approach. He sings it very gently. There's no real kind of like emotional tautness to it or anything. It's just a very, very good piece.
Story-wise as well, it's probably his most basic that I can actually think of. It's literally, you're getting ready, you go out, you stay out, and you come back. There's nothing really there. He doesn't throw any curveballs, and I think that is just to relate to that whole nice optimism, really. Like, he does talk about melancholy quite a bit, so there is that sort of underlying sadness that maybe he really can't just find happiness just for it being Saturday night. But a lot of these people, there was an article, he read it in the newspaper around this point, and it said downtown LA, who needs it? And I think he's writing this song for those people in downtown LA who do need this, really, because all they have to live for really was Saturday night at this point. The economy wasn't that particularly brilliant.
Yeah, totally. And I think if you listen to it musically, if you just listen to an instrumental of this track, it does have quite a sadness to it inherently as well. There is quite a sense of kind of, driving overnight and looking out, and maybe not even getting out your car, just kind of experiencing the night as a voyeur, as it were. But as we leave the heart of Saturday Night, I would say, as we discussed in Closing Time, you were saying that Tom Waits normally has weaker second sides. I would argue Heart of Saturday Night counters that argument. I think as we enter the second side, we have a really strong trio of songs, beginning with Fumbling with the Blues. Sam.
Friday left me with this song, and
right.
This song is a perfect showcase as to who Bones Howe was. Yeah. And surrounding this young fledgling Tom Waits with the experience of all these other musicians. And oh my God, the unstoppable juggernaut clarinet on this song is insane. It's it hurts. It makes you wince, like your teeth itch whenever you hear this clarinet. It just takes you away, and like you almost forget about Tom singing for a brief moment. It sounds sacrilege, I know, but just the actual sound of it. Yeah. It's so sweeping, and it grabs you and it shakes you, and it's one of my favourite songs on this album.
It is a great song, yeah.
Because it just starts off so quite tame as well, and you don't think it's going to kick off.
I love the first moment of that song, the piano, the way he sings it, the little horn, as you were saying, the little clarinet. Like it takes you into this place. I love the title as well, Fumbling with the Blues.
And it's fumbling. He spelled it wrong.
Yeah. Again, he's been a little kind of sweet with it, but yeah, the moment, and like when it pops down, when it gets into its actual like that real nice rhythm with the guitar as well. It's kind of spidery runs, and the bartenders all know my name. They catch me when I'm pulling up like. Obviously, it's kind of exaggerating, but it's quite a funny image in of itself. Like this guy who's such a stalwart of Saturday night. I mean, I guess he's kind of, he's a drunkard, obviously, but the bartenders are ushering him in to hit their bar. Like,
I mean, it is a nice juxtaposition to sort of start side B as well from the sort of. I'm not saying Heart I Said I was a downer, but it was a slow song, and then again, he does seem to have this sort of rhythm where he will slow down and force you to slow down with him, and then he'll just out of nowhere kick you right back into top gear again, and this definitely does.
Yeah, it's kind of like as with a night out, it's that second wind. You know, it's that moment kind of like at the peak of the night, really, when you've been out for a few hours and you're just kind of really engaging with what's going on. You're really enjoying it, you know.
I do like Blues and Lose. It's a very simple rhyming couplet, but
it's incredibly simple, yeah.
I do think that the ending has kind of this emotional weight without being sappy.
Yeah. Come on and whisper. Yeah, it does have a nice kind of delivery to it, definitely.
Yeah.
And the fact that ironically he's kind of singing this full throated thing, but what he's asking for is a very intimate thing. You know, just no one's ever whispered in my ear and told me that I'm the one, but I imagine that would be quite a lovely thing to experience, you know, from a loved one.
I might have done it when I was drunk once, but you may not have been listening.
yeah, exactly.
There is one bad line in this.
There's a few bad lines in this.
You've got to bury me with your fire. I was like, that's like a line from The Doors. That is.
Yeah,
but it's redeemed in almost immediately by a pool shooting shimmy shyster shaking my head. That is, I love that. I always say it out loud, and people think I'm crazy.
Yeah, no, the alliteration and the kind of like I agree.
Shimmy's just such a Tom Waits word, though.
Yeah,
and
shyster.
Yeah.
Shyster's a Tom Waits word. Yeah.
Is that a Shakespearean
shyster?
word?
I don't know. It sounds like just slang, doesn't it? I mean, it could perhaps have roots in that. Yeah. I mean, there's another bad line we talked about. So I can't quite remember what it is, but it's like your eyes are like your eyes could blind me like I was looking at the sun or something. But the delivery, it's not. You don't dwell on the lyrics as you were saying. You are distracted from his voice because of the rhythm, because of the instrumentation, and like again, he's not saying anything new here, really. I mean, kind of the fumbling with the blues, it almost seems a description of the sound of the song rather than what he's lyrically talking about, because he's just kind of talking about being down on his luck again sort of thing, but the song itself is a weird interpretation of the blues that has these ups and downs, and it's a glorious bit of music. It's probably the best bit of music on the album, I'd say. Like, it's wonderful.
Yeah, the ending's very similar to Virginia Avenue, I feel, with that sort of repeating that mantra again. And it's actually it's also quite funny that this is the first song, I believe, where he mentions the words blues, another theme that he will obviously another thing that he will obviously delve into much further on pretty much every single album that he does from now on.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too deep into that, because we'll come into that on Drunk on the Moon.
Yes.
So after this song we have probably what I'm just going to say this now. I know that one of us is going to put the next song in our favourite song on the album.
Yeah.
Just because it's that song that when you're listening to Tom Waits with your friends for the first time, and like obviously someone passed the virus on to you passed it on to me, and then I passed it on to my friend Danny, who we'll obviously have on the podcast as well.
Yeah, of course.
We're still trying to figure out which album he'd be best for. But this is one of those songs that, when you know that they've gotten onto the Heart of Saturday Night, you're like, oh, do they know about this? Do they know about this one yet? And this song is the chorus, which is a rare thing for Tom Waits, but this song is the chorus. Please Call Me Baby is a fantastic song. I've been looking forward to talking about this one for a while.
It's a wonderful song. It has an intro that is similar to Semi-Sweet and Shiver My Timbers, a kind of like nice coda piano thing, but his vocal delivery on this is absolutely sensational, and I think Tom works best. Like, there is some braggadocio on this album, such as in New Coat of Paint, and to a certain extent Diamond on My Windshield, but I think in Please Call Me Baby he's incredibly vulnerable. He's just, you know, this is a girl that he's been fighting like cats and dogs with, you know what I mean? Like,
why won't she ring him? Oh my god, it's so painful.
You know, you spit as you slam the door. Like, you know, this is someone who's got a certain vile tendency within her. But yeah, the delivery of the chorus of "Please Call Me Baby," like, you know, obviously, apologies by the way that me and Sam will sometimes just sing the melody, but you kind of have to just. None of us can sing, but yeah, I completely agree. It's an absolutely incredible song. I really like.
It's sexy, man. It's a sexy song. Like, it's curvaceous.
It is sexy, and it's Tom completely relenting to any argument. Like, you know, regardless of they fought like cats and dogs, he's saying that, you know,
still wants to, yeah.
Well, it's a nice lyric. We do crazy things when we're wounded. Everyone's a bit insane. Which is, you know, very true. When you're hurt, you do lash out, but you realise in the aftermath that what you really want is, you know, it's really nice as well that he's saying, please call me baby, as in he wants her to be in the warm. I don't want you catching your cold out walking in the rain. Like, he's not saying come to me necessarily. I mean, I guess he's kind of implying that. But it's just, yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous song.
Yeah, like, he uses those archetypes that we've already discussed. It allows anyone, like, a big thing with Tom Waits is that even though his songs are very personal, they are always so easily empathizable. You can definitely just know where he is at this time, and he's not writing about anything that I don't think he's only felt. He's definitely trying to tap into raw human emotions here. And just the idea of being vulnerable to a woman, being desperate to get her back, is something that I think anyone can really get into, really. Or if you're desperate for a man. I mean, I know a lot of girls like Tom Waits as well. We don't particularly have any close friends who do, but
no.
I'm trying to get my significant other into Closing Time as we speak, actually, because that's the most, probably, even though Mule Variations is more accessible, I think it's best to start with those sort of jazzy ones.
I think, yeah, the thing is, I mean, this will probably be something we're going to plough forever, isn't it? Like, how do you get someone into Tom Waits? I think what's important is, though, they need to know who he is. If you just give them Closing Time and then let them build their way through that, then they're in for too much of a shock, I feel. I think you should know who Tom Waits is now, and that should entice you, and you should like it in a certain sense, or just like, what is this? Like, what the hell? Who is this guy? Like, what is this sound? Yeah. And then trace your path back. I think if you start with Closing Time and move on, it could be a bit dangerous.
Maybe a playlist.
Yeah, maybe. I think getting people into music in general is hard work, and like
it's rewarding work though, definitely.
It can be.
When we got Danny into Tom Waits, something clicked, and we were all better friends because of it.
Maybe
it's just a fact. Like, you can bond over this guy so well. He has so many different songs.
He does,
and you will find, like, I think one of the key things is that he's hard to learn and he's hard to master. But you will eventually, if you have gumption and you've got the sort of spunk, yeah. If you go through all the albums, you will, and I promise you will find something that you love.
Such as Please Call Me Baby. Which is an absolute star of a song, and I think that it lacks any lyrical indulgence here. Tom, you know, this is very kind of just, he's laying it down on the line here, especially in the second verse. I admit that I ain't no saint. I'm selfish and I'm cruel, but you're blind. If I exercise my devils, all my angels may leave too, and when they leave, they're so hard to find.
Oh, it's so good.
It's lovely. It's really nice. I mean, it's a little basic, you know, but that what he's trying to get out there, what he's trying to penetrate, the dialectic warring nature of Tom, this kind of madman, but also this really soft singer-songwriter, is it's done perfectly in Please Call Me Baby, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those songs that I was kind of really, like, excited to talk about, but once I got to writing about it, I'm like, oh my god, it's just, I like it, and that's it at the end of the day. Do you feel like we ever see this sort of vulnerability or desperation in Tom again? This sort of pure, like, literally, like he doesn't even try and defend himself at all here. He's totally at behest to her, and I feel like as he gets older, he sticks up for himself a little more.
Yeah, I think that maybe songs like Pony, which you mentioned last episode, in which he recollects all the... I mean, okay, it's not an explicitly personal song, but there is definitely a lot of vulnerability in there. But yeah, I agree. I think this song stands out. I mean, maybe we'll see as we explore more rounds, but this is Tom at his most, you know, open, really.
At least so far, anyway.
At least so far, and it leads us into a song that I do really enjoy, Depot.
Possibly even a catchier chorus than Please Call Me Baby, because it is just two words.
I don't think the brevity breeds catchiness, though. I think Please Call Me Baby is like a far superior chorus to Depot.
I love singing along to Depot. And then just keep saying, what am I doing here? It's just like, oh, okay, I'm in, let's go, let's see where this song is going. It's got like lots of those almost orgasmic crescendos. Where it's
Yeah,
just
no,
like it's a cacophony, man. It's awesome.
The opening of the da na 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 na. It feels like you're kind of nodding in and out of like, you know, like not sleep and wake, but kind of consciousness. Like it has this real kaleidoscopic feel to Depot.
It would be almost impossible to argue against the fact that this album does initiate Tom's look into dreamscapes and consciousness. Like a lot of these songs are very melodically dreamlike, with that sort of saccharine Disney-esque flourishes. You could, like, it's impossible not to fall asleep to this album if you put it on and you're trying to go to sleep. It's very relaxing. It's very soothing.
Yeah, and
he does
like,
exploit that, definitely.
When he's just like in the deep, and it's like wow. There's just like the band are on fire in this one. Like again,
they're howling.
They are, and it's kind of. I keep comparing it to Semi-Sweet. I think Semi-Sweet, Shiver My Timbers, and Depot are brothers in this album. I think they're all very similar songs in the sense that they're all kind of focusing on the idea of, escape to a certain extent, and they all kind of riding around on the same motif. And Depot's maybe the second best. Shiver My Timbers is quite good as well. Actually, no, Semi-Sweet is probably the one that I like the most. So I just went for all three of those. But
Depot, it is kind of. Again, this song was rewritten for I Can't Wait to Go Off Work and See My Baby. Kind of similar songs.
Yeah.
But this one's kind of a bit older, I feel. It's about a man staying late and wishing he was out on Saturday night rather than, say, a young boy. One of the best things on this song, though, is the trumpet.
Yes.
Oscar Brashear. I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. He famously worked with Earth, Wind and Fire, Neil Diamond, The Temptations. But that real jazz energy just takes us on that journey, and it's a lot more up tempo than possibly especially where the album's going to go. I do believe it kind of dips off now, and this is a nice little farewell really to that sort of pumpy, like the night is going to go downhill from here, but I think that's very intentional.
Yes, yeah, definitely, because it's kind of like it makes sense really, doesn't it, that you have, if you go from the 6th track, Heart of Saturday Night, which kind of like encapsulates the feeling of contentness on a Saturday night. Fumbling My Blues is that second window. We're saying Please Call Me Baby is the drunk call, you know, as it were.
Hopefully it's not his second cousin though.
No. And then Depot is leaving the sense of exiting a place, and then as we go into Drunk on the Moon, Sam, track 10.
Drunk on the Moon. Drunkenness is a theme for Tom Waits that it's almost not worth going into. It's very self-explanatory, but it all comes from his dad, who's a massive binge drinker, and this song is very much, to me, like I do like the pronunciation of the word saxophone in this song, but it does just feel like it's kind of stuck in the middle of an evolution of an idea, because Tom explores ideas throughout his whole career. He won't just say, I like this, and then he's done with it. He will either try and maybe more accurately describe what he meant, or come back to a topic with a more world-weary view. And I just feel like this is, both thematically and in terms of composition, most importantly, this song starts off in Virginia Avenue and culminates in almost the entire Small Change album.
Yeah, this is a filler for me. Drunk on the Moon. I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, I think Heart of Saturday Night, it is strong actually. I mean, we're saying before we dug into the analysis that maybe Closing Time has more actually great songs, but
this is not one of them.
No, this is not one of them. But the mood here is still kept up, which is fine, and it does make sense. Again, like we're talking about the story we were talking about before, it makes sense that this is kind of him at his most inebriated, kind of just like not rambling, but
he hasn't got the girl.
No,
he's gotten the bus back. He's probably just slumped in his chair now, isn't he, with a bottle of whiskey. It is nice how linear the album is as a quasi concept album.
Yeah, it works. It definitely, it definitely operates in a believable chronology.
Yeah, you do get that, with this sense of linearity, he is more in control of what we may be meant to be feeling. And obviously all of this is lost in the shuffle generation, but these songs in order do definitely have that emotive effect that I think Tom was trying to get across from A Saturday Night. It's so accurate. I mean, I haven't really particularly been out of till about 4 for several years now, but this album evoked so many different memories, and it's a shame that we're spending so much time just stuck on this "Drunk on the Moon" song. There's not really much more to say.
There
really,
isn't
is there?
really. No, it's
I felt like he was drunk on the studio when he wrote it, man. I mean,
right.
there was a
Zing.
there was a great little question when someone asked him, like, he said, like, "Are you an alcoholic?" And it was on one of these horrible Australian talk shows.
Yeah.
This may have been an interview for Nighthawks at the Diner or Small Change,
Right.
But it said 75, so probably yeah. But he said, "I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy." And
I remember.
I love that line
that is
so much.
That is such a good line. I remember that years ago. I remember talking about that at school, but that is just. It's perfect. It's perfect. So, building on the idea of Tom as a writer, as a lyricist, you know, the Ghosts of Saturday Night, After Hours. This is in brackets. Sorry, After Hours at Napoleon's Pizza House.
Kick it off, man. I haven't got much to say about this one.
No, me neither. Really, it's a little disappointing that it ends on a bit of a low note. Like it kind of squibs out. Like, I think "Drunk on the Moon" would have been fine. You know, it's not necessarily the greatest song, and this is nowhere near the song "Closing Time," Closing Time, which gives you such a sense of finality and conclusion. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Again,
maybe
spoken word piece, you know.
Like, you know how I said on the last podcast, I kind of wish he'd suffered a bit more. I think if he'd have, like, added a song from the sort of tragic Small Time era onto this one, this may have ended a bit more solidly. Maybe he's not wallowing in the depths enough to really know the pain that an album like this would need to end on, perhaps. That's just my own interpretation. I do feel that this is very much the little brother of the title track.
Yes.
And he does that again on Rain Dogs, where the song "Bride of Rain Dog" is vastly inferior to Rain Dogs. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a single song where he repeats the title that doesn't fail to live up to that.
Yeah, I think that if you take this more as just poetry and experience it that way, there are some really nice Tom Waitsian lines here. He dreams of a waitress with Maxwell House eyes and marmalade thighs with scrambled yellow hair, which is quite a nice kind of evocative image of a diner or a waitress at a diner. But yeah, he's just kind of like sweeping up the pieces. Really, he's putting the world to rest. You know, the world is sleeping now, and as a journey, you know.
Yeah, he was working until 4 from like the age of 14. That is so crazy.
But in the same way that maybe on the way home, you just listen to your friends chat shit or whatever, or you just listen to someone talk. Like, this again has that sense of a eared-in dialogue that you're just kind of experiencing. And
oh no, Tom's definitely a listener and an observer. You never see him like, even when he's on stage, he's quite like shriveled and like he very kept to himself. He doesn't really seem to be that much of an in-your-face personality. So it is nice to see him just. Like we say, he takes these snippets that he sees here and there and just adding them into these songs.
And he, within the song itself, it takes us from Saturday night into, I assume, Sunday morning. He says that the early morning final edition is on the stands, and the town crier is crying there with nickels in his hands. You know, there is... we've
thematically, it's very good.
Yeah, I think thematically...
I just think as a song, it kind of peters out a bit too early. I would have liked something... Again, I get it. Saturday night's over. That kind of sucks. But you could have made it maybe a bit more optimistic. But again, with a title like "The Ghosts of Saturday Night," it's very much in that sort of Billy Joel, Allentown way of like, oh no, we've got to face reality again for the next week.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, as he says in Please Call Me Baby, you know, you can't have demons without the angels, sort of thing. You've got to, if you want the highs of the Saturday night, you've got to deal with the lows of reality. And, you know... But that's Heart of Saturday Night.
Fantastic album.
It is very good, actually, yeah. I mean, I'd always regarded it quite highly, but revisiting it as a piece as well, as something that's from 1974 as well, you know what I mean? You've got to kind of take into account that this album's 40 years old now, and it's incredibly strong still, so...
And I believe that's the first sort of difficult weights phase we've gotten out of the way now. We've got a relatively 2 pretty easy albums coming up.
Well, I think Nighthawks is a bit of a beast to tackle, but yeah.
Oh no, I'm just talking about in terms of like I don't think there are many songs that we won't like coming up.
No, I mean there's not many songs I don't like on Heart of Saturday Night, but that's a good segue actually. We'll talk about as we always talk about our favourite and least favourite songs on the album as we be closing time, and we'll probably talk about this more explicitly in terms of our playlist idea next episode. But what we're hoping to do, well, what we will do actually, we're going to make a Spotify playlist. So obviously every episode we both mention 2 songs at the end, our favourite song and our least favourite song, and we try not to step on each other's toes. I mean, normally we might agree on the least favourite song, but whatever. But we're going to put all our favourite songs into a playlist, and that'll just, if you want to follow it, we'll update it every episode we do it, and it'll just, by the end of it, I mean, what's that? There's about 20 albums, so about 40 songs on there, which is probably quite a nice number,
And like, not that this is meant to be like the sort of the I think we discussed this yesterday. It's not meant to be like official. This is what you need to listen to Tom Waits. This is just what we personally believe are the best songs, and hopefully that'll tell you a little bit about us as well.
Yeah, it's just more like sometimes it's nice to make a playlist and just to see what patterns emerge, or maybe there's a lot of songs about the ocean, or maybe there's a lot of ballads, or who knows.
I think we could also put something together on YouTube for that as well, just using the videos that are already up there and just putting them into a playlist. That could work as well.
Yeah. So, Sam.
Least favourite song.
Start with least favourite song.
Ghost of Saturday Night. I can't remember it.
Ghost Saturday Night. Yeah, I mean...
Literally, I cannot remember it.
Yeah.
All I know is the last line, and I thought that was quite nice. Of Saturday night. And then it ends. I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of nice. But the rest of it, it stands in pale of Diamonds on My Windshield as well. So,
and then for me, I mean that's there. Drunk on the Moon though is probably like I'm looking at the track listing now, and I can honestly say that the rest of the 11 songs other than Drunk on the Moon and Ghosts are pretty good, really. Like, even if they're not great, they're still pretty listenable. They're pretty enjoyable, but Drunk on the Moon it reeks of being a little auxiliary, and musically it's a little mute, and Tom is not doing anything new here, so I think that's our worst. But your favourite song, Sam?
Oh, it's got to be the one I've just mentioned.
Yeah,
Diamonds on My Windshield. It's impossible not to fall in love with the song.
Diamonds on My Windshield.
It's the images are timeless, as is he. Sorry. And the bass, it catches me. I actually it's one of the douchiest things you can ever do on a bus, but I will catch myself clicking along to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like, I'd love to find that original pamphlet now and get a copy of that. That'll be a real heirloom to my kingdom. I love the song. There's not much more I can say about it. If you like, I mean, we go to quite a few spoken word shows and stuff, and it's just that. I mean, I mostly end up complaining almost more than you do, probably out of ignorance to the form, but it embodies everything that I personally like about spoken word, a certain beat, and less politicization. And it's just a nice poem for the sake of a nice poem.
Yeah, and it creates images in your head rather than just you're just listening to the message.
You have to work with the song. You've always got to pull your own weight with Tom. Actually, I think that's another quite important thing. You can't just whack it on and then play Call of Duty or whatever. You have to sit down with the album.
Yeah, that's true. I think the best song, Please Call Me Baby, is a masterpiece. I would say. I would genuinely say it's up there with his best songs. I would say it's an absolutely wonderful story. But his lyrical prowess and his vocal delivery really sells this track for me. There's something about the vulnerability in the way he sings that chorus that I can't get enough of, really, and the way the chords just it's just like it's almost Disney-esque, it's kind of got this like sweet magic to it, but it's irresistible. I think Please Call Me Baby is
magic's a very good word for it. Like the strings are almost like pixie dust.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hate strings. I hate them in Tom Waits, but they work here, and they do work in other songs as well. But they really flourish here. So yeah, that was Heart of Saturday Night. I think a nice little segue just to the next album would be when he worked at Napoleon's Pizzeria. That's when he said he first met his sort of Nighthawk-esque characters. So next week we will be tackling, I believe, the first live album.
Nighthawks at the Diner.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Actually, I'll be listening to it about 50 times a day now. It's I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, is that it for week 2?
I think that's it really. Yeah, Nighthawks again. Pretty incredible piece of work. It's going to be really fun to pick for it. It actually has one of my all-time favourite Tom Waits songs ever on there. I would maybe put it in my top 5. So I won't spoil that yet.
I think I know what that might be.
Yeah. I think I've probably told you before. But yeah, I absolutely adore that song and the album and the mood. So yeah, this has been Down in the Hole. If you want to get in contact with us, like we said, please email us, tomwaitspodcast@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with us or just check us on the blog where we're going to we'll put clips that we mentioned on the show, and the shows will be on there as well. It's it's tomwaitspodcast.wordpress.net. .com.
I still can't believe that hadn't already been taken.
I know. Well, there isn't any Tom Waits podcast. Weirdly, there's a few podcast episodes in which they discuss. There's one where they discuss rain dogs. I haven't actually listened to that. It's probably wise not to listen to it. But yeah, so we've been Sam Wiles and Tom Quee. Thanks so much for listening.
It's been a pleasure, people. Thank you very much.
Been great.
Have you had a good time, Tom? Have you had a good time?
I've had a great time. That's
good.
Yeah, so thank you for listening again, and please subscribe. Please write a review if you enjoyed it. It's been Down in the Hole.
It's been a pleasure. Take care. Bye.
I wish you were here more often, but you don't live here, do you? Where do you live?
Well, I'm living in California. I was here for a few years.
Put in some time here. How do you like California?
Well, it's very different than New York, as you know.
Yes.
My stay here was difficult primarily because what was new was jogging was new when I was here.
And that drove you out of the city?
No, I thought it was an acronym for something. I thought it was Jamaicans on grass or something.
Sure. Easy enough to make that mistake.
Yeah. So but I wasn't ready for it. Because I was still drinking and smoking at the time, kind of around the clock.
Around the clock. Sure. Well, it is. If you really put yourself into it, it's a 24-hour-a-day gig.
It got in the way of my jogging.